Has there ever been a time in your life where you've put your foot in your mouth, so to speak? Let's see. Let me provide some examples. Something like, maybe you were warming up vegetables on your stove and, cranked up, the temperature all the way, and then talked on the phone to somebody, and before you know it, all that's overflowing everywhere, all over your stove, all over your kitchen floor, putting residue everywhere. Or if you're an airplane pilot to a little Cessna plane. Any of you in that field of life would know that the gas to the plane is actually in the wings, and there's a cap, and maybe you filled up the plane and forgot to put the gas cap back on, and you go into flight, and all the gas evaporates out in flight, and then before you know it, the engine shuts off and you have to glide to safety. Or in my case, I took, these shop classes back in, college, and I got to do some hands-on with working with a lathe, if you know what a lathe is. Whenever you use a lathe, that metal rod or whatever you're trying to taper down on the lathe, well, has, chucks to the big rotor, and you have to, use the key to tighten the chucks down. And on about maybe twice in that class, I forgot to take the chuck key out of the out of that huge rotor, turn on the lathe, and that truck goes flying violently in the air. Just crazy trajectory, and it was as scary as shit too. And after doing that a few times, I'm like, I ain't doing that again. That just knocked me off my feet way too much as it was. And I have a funny story about maybe, Ellie, I guess maybe somewhat putting her foot in her mouth, maybe about at least 10 years ago, at a time when, stress was high in her life, where the stress was at the stomach, and so to speak. Ellie, had a camera. I guess maybe one of those, bigger, expensive cameras, and of course, and she was was holding her camera, kind of maneuvering, the pro face to it and what have you. And then, she sits down and sets the camera on her lap. And after, Ellie is sitting down and has a camera sitting on her lap, I think, she's scrolling on her phone. Maybe talk in deep conversation with mom, just commiserating, what have you, and just real deep into conversation, or maybe deep into surfing on her phone. If I can remember right, I think it was highly involved with surfing on her phone and maybe talking to mom, or I mean, something of that nature. And then, I mean, then Ellie goes to get up, forgets that the camera is sitting on her lap, and that camera falls to the floor. I mean, kind of maybe violently, and then Ellie picks up the camera and gets paranoid, and she's like, I forgot that camera was even in my, lap. And then she got, discouraged and glanced the camera over to make sure it wasn't damaged. She totally forgot that camera was sitting in her lap. And gets up and that camera goes wham right to the floor. Let me do kind of a depiction here. I'm going to use something non-valuable because I don't want my real phone or my real cameras or anything, other electronics to get damaged. But we're going to pretend that this bottle of soap was Ellie's camera or whoever's camera. Okay, she demonstrates the camera, shows pictures or whatever, then sets the camera on her lap. And I'm thinking she had out her phone scrolling or whatever. Oh, maybe, of what I talked about earlier, maybe deep in conversation with mom or whoever. I mean, with that camera sitting right on her lap, and she may have been just, deep surfing on her phone, something like that, and talking to mom or whoever, and just deep surfing on her phone, or maybe texting somebody, or just. But anyway, it went something like this. And then I forgot the camera was even in my lap. And she's like, I forgot the camera was even in my lap, and gets all this phobia about maybe possible damage to the camera, glancing it over, and I think it was mom or whoever that cautioned to Ellie, next time, pay more attention, make sure that camera is sitting out of the way or what have you. And what I told Ellie this my sister Ellie, what I told her, of course I reminisced on that. Of course she doesn't remember it, but I sure remember it. And I joked, and I said, hey, Ellie, anytime you get up, make sure there's nothing, sitting in your lap first. For precaution purposes.